Hello from the library of Michael and Masako in Japan. Uh, this is, some people have asked me why the books are constantly changing every time I come on. It's because it's a working library and I'm constantly using it. It's not here for show. And actually, a lot of the books are quite old. So I spend a lot of time going through old books. I have probably 30 dictionaries sitting over there or so, old dictionaries, because you got to decode this stuff. Another thing that I have is a lot of these old weights and measures books and that sort of thing, which are very handy. We'll talk about that in a minute. But this whole uh, video is going to be more about psychological operations, death, and how important it is to pay very close attention to the inner voice and to study like crazy. And let's talk about something. Misako and I were walking through the airport in Canada, and I saw this book, Lost in the Valley of Death, right? Lost in the Valley of Death. I saw that book, and I walked over, and I said, I know that guy. And I walked over and picked up the book. These gold backs are, Mike Adams gave me these. I use them for bookmarks. Yeah, I didn't personally know Justin Alexander Shelter, the one who went missing in the Valley of Death. But when he went missing, I was at my office in Thailand doing other stuff of significance. And a lot of people, numerous people, let's say, reached out and asked me to help look for Justin Alexander Shelter, right? And I was quite busy. I was busy with war level stuff. And so, but they were very concerned that he might still be alive in India, because they knew that I had tracked down people in India successfully. And so that's why people were asking for his help. It wasn't random. And so I read his diary, Justin Alexander Shelter's diary. It was online. I read it closely, and I was like, uh-oh, I think I know what happened to him. And I think, in fact, I advised, and it's my name is in this book a few times, but my advisory role, I didn't go to India. I was too busy with other things, but I gave them very specific advice on who to go find and that sort of thing. Anyway, the person I told them to go find ended up getting arrested, and he ended up dying, apparently being murdered in prison. You can't make up this stuff. I mean, it's like out of a movie. They never found Justin. I think he was killed by the guy that I told them to go find. Anyway, that's a separate story, but it's of interest because I used to travel in a very similar way that he did. All over India, I tracked cannibals. I lived with a cult. I was not in the cult, but I was researching. I was doing what I do now, which is read and research a lot and go places and that sort of thing. And he was doing it too. And I read his diary, and I said, we're very similar, except that he's a lot more credulous than I am, right? I've got a much sharper instinct for danger. I could tell that by reading his diary. Like one entry in his diary, which may still be online. This was a bestseller, by the way, so you can find a lot about it. His diary may still be online. But in his diary, he talked about he had a second thought about the guy he was traveling with. And I'm like, that's the guy. I know the cult that he's from. You know what I mean? That's a very dangerous cult. It's called Naga, right? And they're related to Agoris, which is, Agoris are the cannibals I tracked down. Anyway, they're very similar. And I knew about Naga because I ran across quite a few Nagas when I was in India. And anyway, so the end of the story is Justin had a second thought. He clearly wrote it down. And I'm like, don't do it. You know, that inner voice is your best advisor. Anyway, I think he's dead. Anyway, best-selling book out of it. He fell for a fraud. I mean, the guy was clearly a fraud. The guy was clearly baiting him out to kill him. That's what I think. That's what I think, because I know about that cult that he was with, and he vanished like many, many, many others. Actually, I've got a whole section of those guys up here. Yeah, I keep rearranging things. I haven't got my Dewey Decimal System down here yet because I'm reassembling my library. And so now, when it comes to fraud, there's fraud, and then there's deadly fraud and trickery like wartime level or Thugi type level. By the way, the name Thugi, thug, came from India, another cult, very similar to the Naga cult that that Justin vanished with one of the members, and the name Thug actually came from the Thuggee cult. They're called the Stranglers or the Deceivers, right? And the British finally got sick of them, and they, started hunting them down with their army and killing them and hanging on the side of the road, going after the Thuggees. But I got that much book space, all Thuggee stuff, all the things that they do. I think the Thuggees are still out there. They've just gone underground, and I say that with cause. I mean, I think traveling in India can be very dangerous, and I could go on about that for hours, but that's a different story. I did track cannibals, and they're hardcore cannibals. But anyway, my first book, let's talk about a fraud. My first book, Danger Close. When it came out, there was only one title named Danger Close, and that was my book. Now there's like 20. And I think the Delta Force commander even came out and named a book Danger Close. Anyway, there's like 20 different books and some films or something. Anyway, if you look up Danger Close, you'll, anyway. So this is, so my book won the prestigious Bill Gurley Award, right? The Bill Gurley Award. You're going to love this. So when I was in high school, a good friend of mine named Richard White, I'm going to explain the Bill Gurley Award. A great friend of mine named Richard White, we were born 3 days apart in the Winter Haven Hospital. We're from Winter Haven, Florida. And so we've been friends a long time. We were born 3 days apart, right? We're still good friends. And so Richard, when we were sophomores in high school, at Winter Haven High School, he was a prankster, to put it mildly. I've done a lot of pranks with him, but this was all Richard. Richard put somebody on the ballot for student council president named Bill Gurley, right? And he put signs all over the school. He got the front office to sign off on him. He got several, I think 4 or 5 teachers to sign off that Bill Gurley was a good guy, no discipline problems. And the teachers are like, well, who's, Bill Gurley? And oh, he's the curly-haired guy, like 5'10". He likes you. And, teachers sign off. And anyway, it came time for student council speeches. And Richard got up and he gave a speech. And he said, sorry, Bill Gurley can't be here today but because he's in the hospital. He's sick. But he sends his wishes. He wrote the speech. He asked me to read it. So Richard, reads the speech. And Bill Gurley got elected student council president, right? And so then for several weeks in the morning announcements, they were like, chess club won or lost or whatever, football team, which I was on. Actually, they would talk about the announcements and that sort of thing. And they would always say, and will Bill Gurley please report to the main office? This went on for weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. I don't remember. Maybe Richard would remember. And Richard, he's a university professor now. But Richard, turns out Bill Gurley didn't exist. He just made it up. So Bill Gurley came out of the mind of 15-year-old Richard White, my great friend, Richard White III, right? So you can't make up this stuff. So ever since that time, Bill Gurley became quite famous in my hometown, Winter Haven, Florida. So when I was coming out with Danger Close, I tell the Bill Gurley story in here. And I called up Richard one day. He was in Kansas at the university, or maybe he was in Italy teaching there. I think it was in Kansas. And I said, Richard, what do you think about putting the Willie Mae Gurley Award on the book? He laughed. Of course, he said, do it. I said, yeah, but I don't want people to think it was, just a fraud thing. But I'm telling the story in the book. And I think it would be a nested joke, right? And it's quite funny because I would be doing interviews when the book came out. The book did really well, even though I self-published it. And people would bring it up. They're like, and it won the prestigious Willie Mae Gurley Award. And I was on NPR one time, a local affiliate at University of Florida, I think it was. And the guy was like, it won the. I'm like, he's saying that to his audience. And I'm like, anyway. So anyway, it was a huge lesson that a 15-year-old can just make up a candidate and win. And it became, anyway, the principal became, unhappy with Richard, to put it mildly, and it just got worse from there. Like when I rode my sister's horse to school with Richard on the ground, we dressed as Indians, and we told the principal to tear down the school. It's on the ancient Indian burial grounds, right? So I'm up on the horse. It's a big horse, man. And Richard's on the ground. The chief say, anyway, we caused a lot of problems, but they were not like drug or criminal problems. We just didn't like the principal because he was kind of authoritarian. Anyway, Mr. Stewart, I'm sure he's a great guy. Anyway, we grew up. I went to Special Forces, and Richard became somehow I accidentally cut that off, so I just put the videos together. Richard became a university professor, and still is, and so got his PhD and all that good stuff. And anyway, we've done many things together, and since that time, I've learned many lessons. One is that well, you never know what you're looking at. Richard got somebody who didn't exist elected, and so since that time, I've heard so many people say things like, I became a war correspondent and all these different things, and I've seen a few things downrange, and I often hear people say, "I remember when media was honest," Walter Cronkite, and my rejoinder to that is, no, you don't. You remember when you thought media was honest. That's all, because it was captured before any of us were born. There is nobody watching this that was around when it was honest. It was already captured. Now, there are outliers. There are people out there that start their own companies and that sort of thing. They often get gobbled up, and then there's outlier bloggers that pop up, and like me, I'm totally independent. And notice my audience is quite small, though. They keep it mitigated. They've tried to buy me out many times. Obviously, I'm not there. New York Times wanted me to write for them. I'm not there. I think most people would love to write for New York Times. Not I. And so, so many things to talk about. One is Trump. I'm looking at these books here. I wanted to show a few, but I just rearranged a couple of things. Trump is obviously pushing the Bitcoin. And that is of significance, because this is obviously a huge trick, and it's a very sophisticated trick. It's a very sophisticated trick that is, and the people that think that they get it, there's going to be few people that actually understand it on some higher level. You see a lot of the the Bitcoin bros, and they'll say, well, you don't understand the technology. And the technology is basically like this. This is the kernel of the thing. They're like, you don't understand the blockchain technology. I don't know. I've read a bunch about it, and I don't. You know what I mean? And guess what? All those Bitcoin bros, they don't either. Unless they wrote the code, they don't understand it either. And if they say they do, they either are lying or they have bad thinking hygiene, because they're wrong, straight up wrong, unequivocally wrong. Just like the people that were pushing the death jabs and had no part of the manufacturer at all, no part of the supply chain at all. They simply didn't know, period. But they were like, these things are safe and effective. And now probably millions of people are already dead. More than 600,000 estimated just here in Japan, already dead. And people are falling out of the trees every day. Right? So there it is. They're saying, you don't understand the technology because you're a boomer. And I'm like, you don't understand the technology, and good luck with you. And buy as much as you want, and have fun with that. And so, remember when they were pushing the Bitcoin to begin with, they were saying, well, it's anonymous. That's what we need, because, the fiat money, Creature from Jekyll Island, that's it in Japanese, actually. It's Masako's copy. Creature from Jekyll Island. Everybody who's read that knows about the fiat money very well. They're saying, what about fiat? We got to get some way to get away from the fiat. And they're saying this Bitcoin is anonymous, right? Okay, so that was the big selling point for a long time, that it was anonymous, right? And then when that lid was blown off, not only is Bitcoin not anonymous at all, period, it's more trackable than your credit card or debit card. It's incredibly trackable. Anybody in the world can track your Anybody in the world can track your Bitcoin. They can be in China tracking it, right? They can be in Russia tracking it. They can be your neighbor tracking it. They can be anybody under your roof or on the space station tracking it, right? And so it's not trackable. So that lie was caught in this nested lie, right? So And back to the kernel, the deeper one of the Russian doll there, they don't know what's they don't even know what's in the thing. It doesn't, they don't know what it was designed for. And keep in mind, allegedly it was made by a Japanese guy, and Satoshi, right? And so many people have told me, no, I think I know who he is. Okay, Bigfoot guy. Okay, so who is he, right? I think I know who he is. No, I know who Satoshi is. They keep saying this, right? But nobody can produce him, right? Listen, if you were going to do a major fraud, the most trusted country in the world still is Japan. You would definitely put it and say a Japanese guy did it. You wouldn't say a Chinese guy did it. You wouldn't say a German did it. You wouldn't say an American or a Canadian did it. You would say Japanese. That's what I would say because, I go around the world a lot and I know the most trusted people are still Japanese by far, even more trusted than Americans. But Americans, obviously, our glitter is fading. But so it is trackable. So that part is a lie. So the Bitcoin bros, it's a cult. It's a straight up cult. They're in deep cognitive dissonance. They'll say, oh, yeah, well, let's just forget about that little part. And they'll say, well, what else should what can we do? And I'm like, well, don't do something that doesn't even weigh anything. One guy down in Argentina, an American, met him at that Republican conference that they have all over the world, CPAC. And we were talking over there, and he's like, no, Bitcoin is a store of energy. Like no kidding, store of energy. And he made that argument. I've heard quite a few people say that. They're like, Bitcoin's a store of energy. It takes so much energy to make it, and so it's a store of energy. I'm like, store of energy, huh? Can you charge my phone with it? Can you plug it into your house and make your house? Can you unwind that code and get some energy out of it? No, it's not a store of energy, okay? That's a straight up lie, right? It's a hardcore lie by somebody who took 0 physics classes at all ever, right? It's like, it's not a store of energy. It's a bunch of numbers or something, right? And that's all it is. And it's highly trackable. And they have already at time when if they want to shut the system down, the off ramps and whatnot, that quick. What do you got when the electricity goes out? That's always the argument that comes, and it's a valid argument. It's a very valid argument, right? So there's these nested lies that are going on, just nested lies. There's one lie after another that's going on. And they'll say, what about fiat? Like, when I was warning about Trump, they would say, what about Biden? Did you want to elect Biden? It's like, obviously not. They're saying, would you rather step on this anti-tank mine or that anti-tank mine? This anti-tank mine has less explosives in it. Right, okay. Either way, it ain't going to work, right? The thing is to resist it at all. Don't go into it, period. Don't support somebody who's definitely trying to kill you, right? Like this guy who disregarded his instincts and is now gone, almost certainly dead. 99% chance he's dead. And because he didn't listen to that little voice and he just overrode that voice, right? And the people that will trick you over in India are very good at it. Very good at it. I've watched them closely. I spent a year over there and spent another year in and around Nepal, running around Nepal, Mount Everest and all that stuff, just walking to the bottom, And so, I've seen all kinds of stuff, and I've seen how different cultures do it. Now, Bitcoin, it's clearly a trap. It's like, no kidding, a huge trap. Now, another problem that we have is Trump is saying, let's bring in 600,000 Chinese. Again, I've written 3 books on Chinese information war, right? I've been all over China. I've spent 20 years in Asia now, right? All over Asia. And I'm quite familiar with what's going on. And China is moving in hardcore. People like Colonel McGregor who don't believe it, he is delusional, as he says about me. I'm sorry, we communicate all the time offline. But, he is absolutely delusional about China, just as he says I'm delusional about China. But then, I'm watching what they're doing in Panama and Argentina, and just because we are doing it too, and they are doing it too, and they're invading us hardcore. And Trump, when we talk about Mexico and, Venezuela, the drug gangs and all that, I am telling you, those are threats and they're serious, but China is a much bigger threat by magnitudes of order, right? There's no question about it. And so the the pushka doll of lies that's going on. There we go. I thought the thing was going to cut off again. Is just quite intense. So, Opium of the Masses. One of the things that's going on right now, this book just came in today, by the way, Opium of the Masses. One of the things that Trump pushes, as do many others, is drugs. Trump is pushing the cannabis thing. He's pushed it hard, right? This book just came in today. It's got Dorothy sitting in the Papaver somniferum. Papaver somniferum is the scientific name for opium poppy, right? Sleeping poppy, somniferum, right? Like Soma from the famous book. And so that book came in today. I had this postcard from before. This postcard is postmarked from 1905. 1905. That is an opium den in New York. In New York, not China, New York, right? And this is addressed to one Miss Spears, 539 something, anyway, in England, right? And you can read so there it is. I mean, it's like a legit postcard. And it's written, it's hard to read her handwriting, but it says something like, I think you may have heard about these, something like that. And if not, basically here it goes. I mean, this is 1905, man. And so the drugs is a huge part of the war that's going on. And the people that keep falling for these major things like the death jab and the crypto, a lot of them think that they're smarter than they are. Like the people that keep saying, you don't understand the technology. No, you don't understand what traps are. You don't understand how sophisticated this is. The people that are doing these very sophisticated traps are doing it at a level that's unimaginable for most people. The people that are still talking about the kernel level of this, the nuclear level, they don't have any idea what's going on. If they're talking about the technology and the blockchain, they're children. They're children. They're not going to understand what's going on for years. It's going to take a lot of other education to start to understand how sophisticated this trap is. It's like there's cheese in the mouse trap, and the cheese is poisoned, by the way, and the mouse trap is over on a rug that's a trap, and it's got a guy with a shotgun there, and it's in a house that's rigged. You know what I mean? It's like it's concentric traps. It's many different traps going on at once. Just like the death jab. You had the people that thought they were smart going, well, I'm not going to take the mRNA thing because that sounds dangerous. So I'll take the other one. That's like Princess Bride, switching cups, here we enter the game of wits, and we've the game is over when one of us survives and one of us is dead, right? I mean, it's red pill or blue pill. Both pills are from a guy you don't know who's clearly trying to kill you. Don't even play the game with somebody who's trying to kill you, who has already experimented for centuries. This is old stuff, right? Like, for instance, these books from... oh my gosh, I've told you about these. I've got so many old books on major frauds. This is they've been doing this for centuries. This is so well honed. The ability to do these things. This is Extraordinary Popular Delusions, right? And this is from which one is this from? By the way, if you don't have your glasses, which I don't have with me, I can. If you make a hole like this, it'll help you focus. So I can focus. And that one, hold on, let me see it. That one's from 1852. 1852, right? I forgot. I thought it was 1848, but it's 1852, right? So this book is from 1852, and it talks about many popular delusions, like the tulip mania back in 1643-ish, 45-ish, and I think it was 1643 to 1648 or something. The tulip mania in Netherlands, where even the very smart Dutch people fell for it. This book right here is called Black Tulips. People trying to make black tulips. And it's like, so there was people, they were buying tulips for the price of a house, right? And then there was the Mississippi scheme, which was also happened in that time frame. And Mississippi scheme happened in what, 1720? And 1720-ish, 1719 maybe. There was the Mississippi scheme, and then there was the South Seas bubble. This book is just filled with these things. I mean, just one thing after another, taking orphans in and all these massive scams. And often the kings and queens were involved, like with fiat money. For instance, the Mississippi scheme, which was in France, there was a Scottish guy that got it going, and he, anyway, they had the royalty involved. They're doing fiat money, huge fraud. Anyway, it was a huge fraud, and it was called the Mississippi scheme, which happened almost exactly at the same time as the South Seas bubble. These things are nothing new, and they're very well honed, and they're like a cathedral of trickery. So the people that are focused on the technology, they're children. I mean, they're like a mouse focused on the cheese. Like, I can get that cheese. It's like, that cheese is in concentric. If you're even in the house, if you even know that there's cheese on there, they already got you. You're not getting out. The house is already locked around you, right? And so it's concentric traps, and this is common. And let's talk about that for a minute. The papaver somniferum. This is about opium, and oh yeah. They used to have these opium chewers, and they're still, I think, probably still around. I think, in places like in Asia, there's quite a few actually in Afghanistan. But they'll chew opium and that sort of thing, and they would use actually morphine to get people off of that, which is more addictive than the opium chewing. And then to get them off of the morphine, they used heroin. You can't make up this stuff. Concentric traps, right? You're still in the trap. But interestingly, The Wizard of Oz that everybody has seen, I'll bet you. The Wizard of Oz, remember, she falls asleep, Dorothy falls asleep in the opium poppy, because papaver somniferum, sleeping poppy, right? What is The Wizard of Oz actually about? The Yellow Brick Road. It's about gold and silver. A huge part of that movie is about the gold and silver standards, right? It's about gold and silver as real money, right? And it's very, if you go back and watch the movie closely, you'll see, and some people know this already, and the Wicked Witch from the East and West and all that stuff, they're all playing specific parts in a larger play. Children, of course, won't get it, and many adults won't get it. But that was a very sophisticated movie with embedded messages that are like, it's got a little message for the children. Okay, there they go. There's Toto and all that stuff. But then there's these bigger and bigger messages for people that have greater and greater understanding. And, then you start to see that that movie is about trapping people with fiat money and that sort of thing and more. It's about information war, man behind the curtain, all this stuff. Wizard of Oz is very sophisticated. It's a very sophisticated movie, and actually it's based on the books, which are very interesting. And like G. Edward Griffin's book, he just messaged me the other day. This is the Japanese version, The Creature from Jekyll Island. It was Anthony Rubin got me to read this book. I should have read it when I was 15. Can't believe it. We were all trapped by thinking, here in Japan and in the U.S., there used to be a gold standard. In Japan and the U.S., people used to save in gold and silver and copper and that sort of thing, right? And then over time, we were brainwashed away from it, right? We were brainwashed that it's virtuous to save in fiat, in a savings account, and you'll get this interest. I remember as a kid, my dad teaching me how to fill out the savings thing and how to balance your account and all that stuff as a kid, right? And now I look back and I'm like, wow, that was perfect brainwashing. He wasn't doing it intentionally, but that's the way it goes. And with the fiat and so here in Japan they used to have a gold standard as well. And then after World War II, we sort of installed a Fed here in Japan. So they have a sort of a Fed that we installed, right? And then over time, the Japanese have been brainwashed off of fiat. They think it's wise and virtuous to save in fiat. So a lot of Japanese have huge savings account filled with fiat, which is evaporating off like, water in the desert dry heat. It's just evaporating off every minute as they print more yen, right? And the same with us with dollars. And so it's fascinating. So, and it's quite interesting too that, Masako is bringing some matcha. And thank you, Masako. And it's, thank you. And for those who don't know what matcha is, I love me some matcha. Thank you. And matcha is matcha. I mean, it's what is it, Masako? That's right, green tea. Oh, it kicked off again. Green tea is matcha, and you'll love it. Anyway, this one's iced. Matcha. I love some matcha. Anyway, but notice she falls asleep in the papaver somniferum because they're all about intoxicants. I've got so many books on intoxicants. One of the major weapons in warfare, besides the financial aspects, but is to interrupt our executive functions with intoxicants, whether that be alcohol. This book is on rum. It's called, alcohol or the Curse of Rum. The Curse of Rum. What year is this book? Anyway, I have to use my glasses again. You can, where is it? I can't see it. It's too dark down. No, there it is. 1888. This one's 1888. Yeah, if you make a hole very tiny in there, you don't need your glasses. And you can actually focus far away, too, not just close. And so, but they wrote tiny in a lot of these old books. And so, here, one of the major drugs and one of the major weapons in warfare, there you go, shooting up. I got huge amounts of books on these. I look at them a lot. I study this a lot because these are the weapons that are used against us. Now, when you see me going against these people that are like Dope or Joe Rogan and that sort of thing, a lot of people are confused because they're at that the tiniest pushka doll level, and they're going, it's about our freedom. It's like, it's not about your freedom. Ulysses S. Grant was talking about this in 1879, and I think volume 29 of his letters. I've got all 32 of the books of his letter. And he's talking about how you're basically just a slave. I mean, he's talking, to the chemicals, right? That's 1879. This isn't anything new. The people that think this is new and that they're getting some kind of enlightenment from doing drugs, you're completely captured. You're completely captured. Your executive function is gone. If people that don't respect their brains expect us to respect their thoughts, I'm not going to, because I know what's going on. I study war. I do war. I mean, it's number one weapon. If I could unleash one weapon on an enemy, it would be intoxicants. It would be, look at the Indians all over the place. Indians destroyed everywhere from firewater, right? You go up to northern Canada now, go to Yellowknife. Masako and I went up to Yellowknife, we went up there because there's, routes and resources, right? And there's a bunch of lithium up there and all. Anyway, the Indians up in Yellowknife are drunk out of their minds. I mean, they're destroyed. And I mean, it's a crime. I mean, you should see it. I mean, they had to close down a mall downtown. The whole mall's not closed, but there's a mall in downtown Yellowknife where there's no chairs to sit at the coffee shop and stuff. And you ask them, they're like, no, because the Indians sit here and they just get drunk and, cause problems and stuff. It's not their fault. They're genetically, you see this all over the world. This is known for centuries. Thou shalt not give the Indians firewater. Now, for all the bad things some of the missionaries have done, one of the great things many of the missionaries have done was going against people that are feeding the firewater, the Indians, right? The missionaries are like, don't do that. When the naval officer Seward was doing his reconnaissance of the Darien Gap in about 1870ish or 72, his orders, I've got the whole report to Congress. His orders, first page of his orders or so, it's like, you will proceed to Darien, and you will be provided with, I think, one ship. The name is, and you'll have a doctor, and you'll have 100 miles of telegraph cable and all this stuff, right? You'll be provided with all this stuff. Your mission is to do a reconnaissance of the Darien Isthmus and yada, yada, yada. And when you encounter the Indians, you are not to provide spirituous liquors or firearms. So our government was like, don't give them liquor, right? But meanwhile, the Spanish loved to feed them liquor. And a lot of Americans did it too, right? And it destroys them, right? You see the Kurds get drunk. I've been out with Kurds a lot. Ask a Kurd. Don't take my word for it. You throw some alcohol into a Kurd, and the great guy kind of can turn into a wild man, right? And, Masako and I were out with the Indians a lot down in the Darien Gap. And in the first, 4 years ago when we started going down, they weren't doing much alcohol in the villages. Now they're being attacked. You go in, there's piles of alcohol. Francisco Agape, he's the mayor of about 28 of the villages. He's a friend of mine of the Imbara Indian villages. He's like, they're starting to beat their wives now. They got all this money, and people are, encouraging them to drink alcohol. And the Imbara never used to beat their wives, and now that it's funny. We saw a bunch of Japanese children walking home from school yesterday with their backpacks and stuff. They're probably first grade. Masako and I were out, and I said, "Who do you think's more well behaved, Japanese children or Imbara Indian children?" We're talking deep in the jungle, right? And Japanese children are extremely well behaved. And she said, "Actually, Imbara. I mean, those people are very civilized, actually. They're living out there in the jungle, and I like them. I've spent a lot of time with them. Masako has too. But now they're being flooded with alcohol and drugs, and it's destroying their young people. They're young men now because of all the flood of the invasion through the Darien. They're being destroyed. I could talk about this for a long time. They're clearly being genocided, not just with the intoxicants, but the death jabs. And anyway, this is another story. But so let's talk about a couple of other things. One is the imposters again. Imposters. There are imposters. This is another old book, reprinted, but it's still quite old. I mean, these imposters have been around since forever. I mean, we act like Trump or Biden or any. Biden was not actually an imposter. He was just a scumbag on his face, right? I mean, he was just like, yep, I'm a crook. It's like, he's just like, didn't even hide it. And Obama, I mean, of course, he was just a manufactured tool that he is. And Clinton, she's a straight up gangster. And so, I mean, but they weren't actually frauds. They were like in your face about it. Trump, he plays like he's on our side and that sort of thing, but he ain't. And so he's pushing drugs, and he pushes bringing in 600,000 Chinese, who are an incredible threat to the United States. And absolutely the biggest threat. If I could name one big threat to the United States, it would be, I mean, as foreign powers go, it would be Chinese as number one. It would not be the Russians. It would be, actually, Americans would be number one. Americans that are traitors are number one, right? The near enemy, as Muslims would say, is obviously number one. And because they're the ones who are allowing this to happen, right? And a lot of the people that are allowing it to happen, they just have no executive function. They're either druggies or they think they're smarter than they are. They don't know anything, and they're like, "Oh, you don't understand the technology, and dope is about my freedom," And the people coming over the border by the millions are looking for a better job. It's like, no, they're not. This is straight up war. Straight up war. You're being genocided, right? We are being genocided. Same here in Japan. This is real war. This is real war. You're going to see millions of people die. Millions are already dead from the death jabs, right? And it's going to get more intense, right? Now, let's talk about a few more things in that regard. Let's talk about trickery more. I put this here. I bought this scale just because, not because I like scales, but because I wanted to make another point. And let's see. I had a silver coin here somewhere. Wish I had more of them. Oh, there it is. And I got pushed out of the way by one of the books. And, let's talk about this. These books I have, when you have all these old books, you need old dictionaries, right? I have so many old dictionaries with different languages and stuff. And then you need these old weights and measures books, because weights and measures have been different around the world. And when you had all these ports all over the world, that the Portuguese and the Spaniards and the Italians and the Dutch and the Germans and the French and, finally Americans and Belgians, everybody under the sun, a lot of people had different weights and measures. So you had these weights and measures book. I have a stack of them. I mean, because I never know which one I'm going to need, right? And these are like from the 17 and 1800s. But you need contemporaneous books with, I read a lot of books from the 17 and 1800s and some from the 1600s. So you need dictionaries and whatnot to go along with them, because they use words differently and their weights and measures were quite interesting. And so let's say, now, when it comes to trickery, what do you think weighs more? I mean, there's all kinds of weights and measures in the world. An ounce of silver or an ounce of iron? Which weighs more? Let's see. I don't know. This isn't iron here, and actually this isn't, I don't know what the weight is on this thing, but it should be about an ounce. But what do you think weighs more, an ounce of silver or an ounce of iron? Or how about an ounce of silver or an ounce of gold? Write down your answers, right? What weighs more, an ounce of silver or an ounce of gold? Or an ounce of silver and an ounce of iron? Not that this is iron, it's probably brass. But what weighs more, an ounce of gold or an ounce of silver? An ounce of silver or an ounce of iron? Or an ounce of silver and an ounce of iron? Gold and iron, silver, gold. Which weighs more, right? An ounce of gold or an ounce of silver? Now, a lot of people will say, well, that's a trick. And they're right. And it is a trick because they don't weigh the same, because they'll say, obviously, they're the same, right? And because they're both ounces, right? But they're not the same. The ounce of silver weighs more than an ounce of iron. The ounce of gold weighs more than an ounce of iron. The ounce of silver weighs the same as an ounce of gold. And how can that be? Some people already know. How can that be? That is because, like in your Ready Reckoners here, your old weights and measures book, gold, precious metals like palladium, gold, silver, they're measured in troy ounces. A troy ounce is about 31 grams. Iron is measured in avoirdupois, which is about 28.3, I think, grams. So the iron is measured in a different type of ounce. So that is a trick. And now imagine a trick that's scaled up to cathedral size with many concentric parts to it. What weighs more? A kilogram of gold or a kilogram of iron? Kilogram of gold or a kilogram of iron? What about that? They actually weigh the same. How can that be? Because that's a kilogram. They're actually measured in the same sort of kilogram, right? So when you get to the kilogram size, it's measured in a different way. You see, there's so many little ins and outs of this stuff, but when it comes down to the tricks that's coming with the Bitcoin and whatnot, they're very sophisticated. I see Lutnick guy, Trump, I guess Trump is Lutnick's boy. Lutnick just made a comment on his Twitter, Howard Lutnick. The numbers are in. GDP growth has surged 3.3%. Sure. Yeah, they must be on drugs to believe that. The numbers are in. Full colon there. GDP growth has surged by 3.3%. And starting now, at commerce.gov, that's the account, has put America's economic data on the blockchain, for the first time ever. Under President Trump, the economy is strong, our workers are winning, and America is leading in crypto and economic innovation. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's a bunch of Bill Gurley, right? One of the ways, obviously, crypto is an immense, Bitcoin specifically, let's talk about, is obviously a wealth sponge. You've got literally people mortgaging their homes to buy Bitcoin, right? You can't make up this stuff. But these, people just took the death jabs in large numbers, multiples. Even when people were around them were dying, we're still taking the death jabs. There's people that are going to still take more, right? And so the highest form of warfare, of course, is information war. And a subset of that is psychological operations. And underneath that psychological operations is intoxicants. Intoxicants. Alcohol is a huge one. The number one in the world seems to be opium products and has been for centuries. And yeah, believe it or not, although the opium's not quite as big in the United States, it is huge and has been for a long time. And, but again, reading these old books is vital if you want to see what's going to happen today. This one here is about The Family Library, Imposture, Deception, and Credulity. Yeah. What year is this one? This one is 1837, right? Actually, these things are written in those Latin numbers like, MCCL, so luckily I can read those. When you see all these old tricks, they're all the same. Nothing has changed. Anyway, I'm going to try to read all the comments and try to answer them. One last thing. This book here is an interesting book. I read it, I don't know, like 25 years ago or so. It's just a quick read. You can read it in 1 or 2 nights. Again, these things are my page markers. I got them from Mike Adams. They're those gold back, not dollars, but gold back notes, whatever you call them. And this book called Innumeracy. It's interesting. When I was after the Army, when I went to school, I studied a lot of math, and at one point I was actually at Michael Jackson's house at Neverland because I used to do security for him, and I was like, you know what? I was just doing some calculations. I'm like, I'm never going to get out of debt. I mean, if I take student loans, which I never did, if I do this, I don't know how I'm going to get out. I wanted to be a physicist or an engineer. That's what I was studying, and so I'm like, I don't see the math trail out of this. I see a trail into debt, but I'm not sure if I see a clear path out of it. And so, I was at Neverland one night, and I'm like, you know what? I hear the call of the wild still. I'd already been in special forces and all that stuff. And I'm a man that likes to do stuff. I like to study a lot, but I like to go out and do things on my own and free, right? Like a real American. And that was when I quit school. I was like, you know what? And I had no student debt. Never took any student loans. I have no debt today, right? And so the thing is to innumeracy. One of the ways that Americans are trapped is a lot of them just are bad at math. And you don't realize the many levels of math trickery that can be done. This is an interesting little place in here. I just turned to it today and earlier when I picked it up. And let me put these glasses on. And it says here, fraudulent medical treatments. This is interesting. Innumeracy is like illiteracy, but for numbers. Fraudulent medical treatments. Medicine is a fertile area for pseudoscientific claims for a simple reason. Most diseases or conditions, A, improve themselves, B, are self-limiting, or C, even if fatal, seldom follow a strictly downward spiral. In each case, intervention, no matter how worthless, can appear to be quite efficacious. This becomes clearer if you assume the point of view of knowing a practitioner of fraudulent medicine. To take advantage of natural ups and downs of any disease, as well as of any placebo effect, it's best to begin your worthless treatment when the patient is getting worse. It's best to start treatment when the patient's getting worse. In this way, anything that happens can more easily be attributed to your wonderful and probably expensive intervention. If the patient improves, you take credit. If he remains stable, your treatment stopped his downward course. On the other hand, if the patient worsens, the dosage or intensity of the treatment was not great enough. If he dies, he delayed too long in coming to you, right? Total fraud. Oh, I've got this other book. I'm not going to go get it because I think we should wrap it up. But I could talk for hours about this stuff. And the thing is we have a predatory government coming for us, obviously. We have a very predatory Trump. Very predatory, long list of people before him. Biden, of course, he's too stupid, but the people around him are not. And by the way, the thing that I was using to prop that stand up is another whole series of books like this. Yeah, The Economics of Migration. That's just one of them. I've got probably 24 books like this. I mean, I spend a lot of time looking at these things, and and as you know, we spend a lot of time on the borders in many different countries. These many weapons are coming at us. We're clearly being genocided. And it's not just the United States. It's not just Ireland or Luxembourg, which is gone. It's Japan. It's many places. And that's it. If you have any questions, I'll try to hit them in the comments. And thank you for all. One last thing, I always forget, almost always forget now, but I'm going to start asking more and more. I need your support. Thank you for any support you give. Financial support is incredibly important. That's why I'm free to do the things that I do and say the things that I say, because I don't work for New York Times. I don't work for any of those people. My audience is smaller. But I can go after Trump. I can go after China and Zionists. Eventually, they'll probably come after me. But at the same time, at least for now, I'm speaking relatively freely, except that, of course, my social media and whatnot is definitely mitigated by the search engines. Thank you, and thank you for all your support. The links are below, and please hit them and hit them hard. I need it.